Get started. I'm going to get started by welcoming and introducing, and hopefully everybody who's wanting to join has joined us and can hear. So welcome and thank you all for joining us tonight on the eve of September 30th, Canada's first official National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Yeah. My name is Hillary Bloom, and I'm the Director of Library Services at the Squamish Public Library. I feel grateful and privileged to acknowledge that we are gathered this evening within the traditional and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, which spans present-day Greater Vancouver area, Gibson's Landing, the Squamish River watershed, and up into Whistler. Squamish Nation people are the descendants of the Coast Salish Aboriginal peoples who have lived in and governed this territory since beyond recorded history. September 30th, 2021 marks the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The new federal statutory holiday will honor those who survived residential schools, those whose lives were lost, and those whose suffering and trauma is ongoing. Until now, September 30th has been known as Orange Shirt Day, a day for Canadians to raise awareness of the history, harm, and legacies of the Canadian residential school system by wearing the color orange. This holiday was established in response to Call to Action 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which states, "We call upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday, a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to honor survivors, their families, and communities, and ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process." The purpose of our gathering this evening is not only to acknowledge that tomorrow is an important day, but to honor and recognize a number of Squamish Nation elders who have been directly impacted over the course of their lives by our country's treatment of Indigenous people, which included being taken from their homes and villages as children and sent to residential schools. And these elders have contributed tremendously in the years that followed to the truth and reconciliation process. We are incredibly fortunate and deeply appreciative of our guests' willingness to share their personal stories and to provide the opportunity for all of us to listen and learn. This is a generous, selfless gift to the Squamish community, and I want to make sure to acknowledge this community gratitude. I hope the feeling of warmth and appreciation can be felt even through this virtual format. And please know that all of tonight's guests are receiving a real life gift of thanks for making this event possible. Something said often is truth before reconciliation. Understanding and listening to elders' stories is such an important part of the continual process of uncovering the truth. So the Q&A on Zoom has been turned off for tonight, and we thank you for being here to listen. I wanted to say that perhaps some of you have shown up tonight not really sure what to make of this new National Day, not really sure what to do or what to think or what to say about it yet, besides knowing it's important. So before I introduce the first of tonight's guests, I want to share a bit of an interview I heard recently with Murray Sinclair, former Senator and Chief Commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or TRC as it's known. He recently spoke with Rosanna Deerchild, she's the host of CBC Radio's program Unreserved, about the call by Indigenous leaders for all people in Canada to mark the day with solemn reflection. Murray Sinclair said the day should be about making sure Canadians don't forget what the schools did to Indigenous children and their families, and he compared it to the way Canadians mark Remembrance Day. In response to his comment, the host, Rosanna Deerchild, said she has mixed feelings about the National Day, wondering whether it will be enough for people in Canada to take those lessons to heart. Most people won't, Sinclair responded, but next year there will be one more. Then the year after that, there will be one more. The most important goal of the TRC, he said, wasn't just uncovering what happened at residential schools, but to make it part of our national memory, so that it cannot be forgotten. So in showing up tonight to listen and learn, you are contributing to positive change, and I encourage you to commit in your own way to keeping this national memory alive. It's up to each of us to do the work. We also recognize that everyone is in a different place in their learning journey, and as a follow-up, we will send out a list of resources you can find at the library to support you wherever you are. Now, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the first of our guests tonight, TlatlaKwot Christine Baker. Christine is a community connector, a community builder, and a Squamish gem. She currently serves as a trustee on our Squamish Public Library Board, but has been an invaluable bridge to the Squamish Nation community for our library for many years, and has made possible many of the reconciliation events and initiatives we've offered. Tonight, Christine will provide an introduction and then graciously serve as a bit of a support crew as we get an opportunity to hear from each elder. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Christine now.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yes? First of all, I'd like to thank our three elders, Kiyowil, Bob Baker, Humteya, Shirley, Toman, and Chesha, Ma, Gwen, Harry. I also would like to thank the Squamish Public Library for this, as we're still in this crazy pandemic, so we are Zooming tonight. I want to offer prayers to our elders and our survivors, and I want to add, in part, the prayer of the Truth and Reconciliation that was created when they were doing the work with First Nations following the Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Great Spirit, we praise you for your gifts that surround us, for the gifts of the land gives us food, shelter, and water, for the gifts of the sun that gives warmth and light to all that grows, for the gifts of the moon and the stars, which you have arranged for your glory, for the gifts of language and culture through which your people praise you and share most deeply held values you have engraved in our hearts. OCM, all my relations. I just want to talk a little bit about residential school in Canada. And it started between the late 1800s and it ended in 1996, where the government in Canada and church organizations operated Indian residential school systems, staffed and ran by 5 major churches: the Roman Catholic, Anglican, Presbyterian, United, and Methodist Church ran those schools. It has been an estimated 150,000 First Nations, Métis, Inuit children were removed from their families, homes, language, and lands. These schools were part of Canada's official policy, which aimed to eliminate Indigenous culture through assimilation, causing our people to cease to exist, to kill the Indian in the child, and to civilize us by separating us from our families. Here in BC, we had 18 federal church operated here, and there's a few of them that our nation members did attend. Some went to Port Alberni, Cocolitsa, Kamloops, who I found out that if they wanted to go beyond grade 7, they go to the Kamloops school. Cooper Island, our Shaker Church minister went to Cooper Island. The St. George Church in Lytton, where my grandfather and his brothers went to, and a lot of our grandparents. St. Mary's in Mission, in which I tried to get into as my best friend was sent back in 1972-73, but they wouldn't let me in. And of course, St. Michael's School in Alert Bay, where Elder Bob, Gwen, and their late sister Betty went to. Seashell, and then of course, St. Paul's in North Van, in which Humteya went to. And the first school opened in Mission, the St. Mary's, in 1867. And our school last closed in 1984. The church-run Kamloops School became one of the biggest the largest schools in residential school system with more than 500 students enrolled in the 1950s. Overview of the schools. They were overcrowded, underfunded, rife with disease, and many of our children weakened by malnutrition and didn't survive. The system became notorious for a high rate of physical and sexual abuse. Parents were threatened jail if their children didn't go to Indian residential school. And many, again, our children died at the schools. We are still looking for them. Tonight we have 3 survivors, Bob Kiyowil Baker, Shirley Humteya Toman, and Gwen Chesha Ma Harry, who are here tonight to share a little of their stories. But before they do that, I wanted to share a little bit about what they've been doing. About 30 years ago, they started working with the late Teresa Nahaney on residential schools. Yeah. They traveled around BC, and I think they went to Alberta to talk to communities, elders about residential school and the pain and suffering associated with that. They actually were at the official apology when the Prime Minister Harper, they were in Ottawa and they were up in the bleachers listening to the apology. And I was there at Chief Joe with my Auntie Betty, and it was pretty intense. A lot of tears, anger, and frustration. The Truth and Reconciliation, the national group, all these 3 were part of that. They attended in Vancouver at the Pacific Coliseum, where they shared their stories and met more survivors at a huge event. We talk about the 94 recommendations, and it's still there. And I do believe they've accomplished 14 of the 94 recommendations to date. They continually work in our schools here in Squamish from grade 3 to high school. They've been to Quest University, and they've been to Capilano U as well. And that's just to name a few. But I guess one of the things I would like to hear is the stories of our elders, and that's why we're here today. Who wants to go first? Mr. Bob Kiyowil.
Good evening. My name is Kiyowil, given to me from our people. All the elders and I traveled with, they really wanted me to give a ancestral name. So I got one from up the river there, Squamish, where our family lived up in the rivers. And I got another name from Alert Bay, where my mother, it's a big long name, but it's too long for me to spell. So I about 26 letters on it. But, anyways, I was born in the village, Alert Bay. That's where I went to school. And I didn't know that because I left. We were little, Gwen, Betty, and I. We had another brother, but we left there and we ended up in Capilano. My great grandmother, Mary Capilano, and we stayed there. And my mother passed on when we were little. I was 3, Gwen was 5, and Betty was 6. So the school must have heard about it, and they came and grabbed my 2 sisters. And I was left behind because I was too young. And I drifted around Capilano because my grandmother was busy up in the rivers. Finally, she came down and picked me up and brought me to Brackendale. I grew up there with Alec Williams and and a few others that I knew. There's in the old days, because during Depression, the Hungry 30s, and that's one thing that we survived again. We survived all that Hungry 30s. It was a really, really hard time for the older people living in Vancouver. Anyways, they were looking for me all the time, and we had a nurse. Her name was Nurse Gary. She every time she came to just up above in Squamish there, my grandmother would hide me. I would go and hide somewhere. And Al used to go and hide. So they never got a hold of us until they said I had TB, so they got a hold of me and sent me to Sardis. That's where my life seemed to all change. I got to Sardis. There's a few speak Squamish, and we aren't allowed to speak our language there. So, 'cause I don't know why but I was left there, and I didn't know where I was. But I don't know how long I stayed there, and then they moved me to Alert Bay School, residential school, in the early 40s. The war was on, and everything else was just going. But I ended up, they took me to St. Paul's because they wanted me to be looked after. So I went there, and I wasn't a Catholic. So I wasn't allowed to kneel down. I wasn't allowed to pray. I can't pray for my meals. I didn't know what it was anyway. So this all happened to me. And then I got on the steamboat with our principal. His name was Mr. Anfield. He was a nice man. He looked after everybody. I got up to Alert Bay, and I didn't know where I was. I just lost. I really was lost. I didn't even know my two sisters. That's how lost I was. They brought me to Betty. She was in the crematorium. To go and see her. I didn't know who she was. But anyways, that school was run by English. They were pretty mean. I don't know why they were so mean. So I was getting strapped every morning because I had weak kidneys, and I started wet myself. And strapped. And some of the boys were, about 8 of us getting strapped every morning. We couldn't even pick up a pencil when we go in class because their hand was so damn sore. And we didn't know why they were doing that. Because I was still in the old Indian ways of thinking. Our ways wasn't like that. Never seen anybody treat anybody that mean. But anyways, we were all getting strapped in that school. And one time there was really bad that we were in one of the playrooms, and this big Major Durham, he was a big, huge man, and he was one of our staff in there looking after the boys, and he looked after us. And he had to strap us in the morning. He took his big belt off, and he made us run around. And while he was running, he was hitting us with his big belt. So we try to run as fast as we can, but we had no clothes on, and everybody was just laughing at us. We were really made a fool out of us, and we couldn't do nothing about it. This was going on until we went to grade 1 and 2 primary class. And every day, every morning, we had to practice for the air raids. And when the war was on, we had the gas masks. We had to train with them, put them on, and go outside. We were all small. And every one of us had to put gas masks on. And that's the way we were. And, the bigger boys had a bigger masks, a gas mask. And this was something that I never saw before. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't like the way things were going, but I couldn't do nothing about it. My dad didn't want to bother with us because he went to residential school and listened. And he didn't know how to look after us. So that's why my grandmother looked after us. Betty and Gwen stayed in school. So that kind of life we had was, I don't know, good, bad, or ugly, or there was no name to it. You know, we didn't know what we're into. Was it good? Was it bad? Was we doing something wrong? Or, you know, and I just can't believe what is going on. I was in there for 8 years, I guess, 8, 9 years. And last two, before we left, first 2 years left, we had a principal, Mr. Wickens, and he was getting real nasty, and he was hiring all these staff that were real ugly, and they were doing the same thing, and they were abusing us, sexually abused. We didn't know anything about that stupid thing that was going on. It was all new, not new, but it's ugly thing that was happening. And we couldn't tell anybody. Everybody would just laugh. That's not true. They didn't believe what is going on. So they did. The chief and council of Alert Bay heard about it, and they went up. Before they went up, they were warned. The school was warned ahead of time. So they cleaned up everything, made it look nice when they came in. And the chief and council, there was nothing wrong with the school, but they didn't look on the inside of what was going on. Mm. The food they were giving us was just slops, and we were starving in there. We had to go down the beaches and look for clams and seafood and boil it in buckets, and we were living on that. And that's the way we survived, you know. We did all survive. You know, everyone that I traveled with. And they were all from different places. So Guilford Island, Turnaround, those Kinkham and Bella and Belcool. We were all together and that starving together, and we ate together and fought together, and you know, that's just the way that school was. You know, there was, when I got in that school, I had no friends at all. I was the only Squamish in there. So I had to fight for myself. Yeah, they were all against me, I guess. I never done nothing for anybody. But, one of the bigger boys, one of the Wadham's boys, came up and told me, he says, "You better fight back, Bob. They're going to keep after you." So I went back and I fought my way back, and they liked me after that. I had to join them the hard way, and just the way it was. You know, you know, the Bell, they were good people, but Master and Skinner, they were pretty rough people. Hideouts weren't pretty quiet because there was not very many artists. They went to different schools. So all my experience that I had in that school, some was really dirty. I don't even like to talk about what we had to do, what we had to eat, what we had to go to school for half a day and work the rest of the day. This is what we had to do to let the school survive. We've done all the plant potatoes, carrots in the springtime. We had to dig it up for the next year's bunch that went in. So this is what we had to do. We were treated that way. It didn't matter if it was snowing, blowing, or cold out there. They put it out in the field, and we had to do that. And I used to make a little fire in the bucket because I was the oldest one that go out and keep the little guys warm in their hands, and they'd be crying. So that's just the way I tried my best. You know, I got out of there. But what happened? We had to run away from that school. There was about 10, 12 of us got together and said, let's run away and get rid of this principal and whoever else. So we ran away in the fall before Halloween, because we got picked up on Halloween. We stayed away for a whole month, and we learned how to steal and hide and do all those crazy things out on the village. Because Lord Bay was an island. It was a 7-mile island. It wasn't very big. We hit on it down and they couldn't find us. But we were watching them all. We'd go out nighttime and play and go stealing their food and whatever we can get. That's just the way we lived, and we had to live that way to survive. Yeah, I think that's about all I can, I can go on and on and on because my stories are, some of them are no good, some of them are long and bad, and especially in that school. Nobody cared. I figured the whole world didn't give a damn for us. We were locked behind the fences. We had a boundary. We couldn't get out of that boundary. Stuck in there. Yeah, I better stop right there, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiyowil.
Okay, I guess my name is Gwen Harry, Shishama, Magiskame, and which I got from my family of North Bay, where my mother was from. My sister and I went to school, St. Michael's School, when I was 5 years old. My sister was 6. And I can remember that day. Can you remember my Uncle Chief? He's the only one that had a car, and he had to bring us to this steamboat. And he went on the car, and so we were always together, 4 of us. My sister, myself, my little brother, and my little sister. And we were always together. And when we left on this car, my uncle's car, I can see my brother and my little brother and sister running after the car and watching them. We didn't know where we're going. We thought we were going to come back, and watching them, we thought it was great. We were riding on a car, but not my little brother and my little sister. And then we can see them fading away, chasing after the car. That stayed with me. And not too many things stayed with me when I was that small, but that did. And when we went to St. Michael's School in Alert Bay, it was just a strange place. It was so huge. And we saw so many girls. around us. And we were lucky when we had an auntie in there. And she helped us there, fit in, I guess you'd say. But anyways, I was raised in St. Michael's School. St. Michael school had 200 children in there. 96 girls, 104 boys. And yet we were separated. My siblings, you might as well say, were 96 girls. I had no mother, I had no father, I had no parents. I had supervisors. And on the other side, the 106 boys, we didn't see them. When my brother finally went to school, we had to have visiting rights to see my brother. And I didn't know that until that we all had to have visiting rights. The older boys had to have visiting rights to see their little sisters. The older girls had to have visiting rights to see their little brothers. That's how it was. The 8 years I was in school. You know, so actually, we were strangers in a way. We didn't grow up in a family environment. And, you know, that funny part of it, I accepted it. I did okay in school. And when we had the truth, might as well call it Truth and Recreation back in the 1980s when it came to surface. And Christine mentioned Teresa Mahaney. She got us together one time. And when my brother told his story, you know, we all cried. I cried, he cried. At that time, it was so shocking to me what he went through, and I didn't go through that. My problem, I guess, was so, wasn't as harsh. We were fenced in for 8 years. And we only were allowed to go out and supervise walks, 2 by 2 walking down the street, down the Albert Bay Road. You know, things like that. But when I found out how terrible the other side of the school was, how shocking it was, I saw on the Facebook, I'm a Facebook person, I saw on the Facebook the other day where this young man showed what his father went through, and he went to St. Michael's School. And he took a picture of the little door, I think you'd call it. And he showed, and they called it the monkey cage. And I didn't know it was like that until I heard my brother talk about it, but I didn't know what it looked like that until I saw it in a picture on Facebook. And they put the boys in that. The men's supervisors were very cruel. And I didn't know that. Of course, I couldn't have done anything about it. I was a little girl myself. The only thing that stuck in my mind is we didn't always go home. We were not fortunate to go home in the summertime. We stayed in school. And this one year, we were locked up. We were locked up in the dormitory. And we took all the beds. There was about 12 of us. We put all the beds on the side, piled it all up against the wall, took all the mattresses down, and we learned how to amuse ourselves because we were locked up. And we did somersaults. We learned how to do the flips. And we learned to do all these things just to amuse ourselves. That's how we accepted it. And I didn't know that we were there for, I guess, it's like a prison in a prison. We were, and we got our foods brought up to us. And they made it sound like a picnic. So we're all on the floor eating the food, and then they take it away. And one thing about that school, we had a bathroom, toilet in each dormitory. And I don't think a lot of kids nowadays know what dormitory means, you know. Some dormitory, the third floor dormitory had about 40 kids sleeping side by side by side by side, 40 kids. The next one had about 20. They had to fit 96 girls in these 3 dormitories. And so, you know, when we were locked up and doing all these fancy things, it seemed like a long time when you were a kid. But it was only 2 weeks, and we were thankful for the people in the village because they complained about it and they let us out. But it seemed like a long time. And, you know, I always wondered what would happen if they left us there all summer. You know, would we have been great gymnastic kids, you know? We did all these things that we did, and they're just to amuse ourselves, you know. And no, I went home twice in the summer. I had to let my dad remarried, had a second family, and we had to look after our oldest little brother. And my sister and I, but we were not parents. We didn't know how to raise babies. We knew nothing about babies. And we used to leave them. We wanted to play outside and we leave them. And we put them in a crib with a bottle beside him. You know, and it's because we never learned that skill. So, you know, he survived us. We looked after him about 2 weeks. And if I didn't break my stepmother's dishes, we'd have looked after him all summer. But I broke them and she got angry and sent us back to school. And we liked that because we were institutionalized. At the age of 13, I got tuberculosis. Very bad that they had to send me to Kokolitsa Hospital. It's all Native people in there. And there's also an institution. And I went into the hospital. I thought I was dying because of the way they treated me. I was very isolated when they found out I had TB. And once I got in the hospital, I wasn't that bad. But I saw others worse than me. You know, I didn't see them die, actually, because TB was a bad disease. The only cure was to be in bed. I was bedridden for 2 years. And I see, you know, people go in there and so sick that they end up dying. You know, so I saw that at the age of 13 till I was 16. They discharged me at the age of 16 and I cried. I didn't want to go home. I was scared to. I was scared to go into another environment where I wasn't known. And so I cried. So the good doctor gave me a job. And I did fine until the hospital burned, then I had to go home. But the environment was, I was a stranger. I was a stranger with my own family. I was a stranger with the cousins that I didn't know were my cousins. You know, this is what happened to me. What they took away from me at the age of 5 and tried to give it back to me at the age of 18. You know, and it was terrible. To me, it was terrible, you know. And I know Truth and Reconciliation is about many children. Some were treated more harshly than others. I read about it, and it really touches my heart that so many children, right from my dad never talked about what happened to him. My dad was a stranger to me, and I didn't know, I never called him dad. I do now, but I didn't at the time. He had a name, and I called him that name. And you know, and I just couldn't get close. I couldn't, there was no bonding. But I didn't treat my kids that way. My kids were bonded to me. And you know, I think it's like I was alone raising my own kids, you know. It's like they were mine. That's how I was when they were young. And I don't know how to really express that. And I think many of us across Canada went through that. And you know, when I saw the graveyards, because I'll say I'm a survivor, but I didn't go through what everybody else went through. But when I saw that graveyards, and I thought, you know, I look at it in a different light. You know, it could have been any of us. And it was many years. We don't know how far back those graveyards go. You know, maybe it was in my dad's time. So there's a lot of things that needs to be acknowledged and brought to the surface. I guess with that, thank you for listening. I hope you understand us more. And I hope you reach out to every nation member, Indigenous person across this country. Because we have many, but we only have a small percentage of our own country. I know that. And with that, thank you.
Lucia. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Humteya.
My turn, okay. Yeah, I was, when I first went to residential school at St. Paul's Indian Residential School, I was really happy because all my cousins were in there. I knew my, my first cousins were my brothers, and my first cousins were my sisters, and they were all in there. And because I was not of age yet, I didn't get to see them as often. So I thought, oh God, I'm going to go to residential school too. I didn't say that. I said, oh good, I'm going to go and see my cousins and finally get to see them every day. not knowing what was behind those closed doors and those gates that kept you in, and you know, the only toys you had were whatever they provided. And other than that, you were just getting educated every day and in the classroom. And it was really not what I expected anyway. And the abuse too was not something that I had ever really seen. And I didn't understand it. I wondered how come these people can do this to us. Some of them were really nice, the nuns, but some of them were really just, they were like prison guards. They knew what they could get away with, and they did as much as they could to give us whatever they had or whatever they wanted to do to us. And it was not very nice, and it got to the point where I didn't want to be there anymore, so I ran away. I ran so that I didn't have to go to school. And I just stayed away and stayed with relatives. Of course, I had so many. Everybody on the reserve is related. So I could just about stay anywhere that had children at my age, and I would stay with them for a while, and then it was really hard to deal with all this abuse that was happening. You know, not just the physical abuse, but the verbal abuse as well. Because they were always telling you, you know, that you were no good and you were ugly and you're not going to be anything more than what you are today. You're never going to be a smart girl. You're not going to be pretty. You're just going to be an ugly, stupid girl. And that you were not going to, you know, be appreciated by anybody. Nobody's going to love you, or not that they knew how to do that. That nobody in there did. I know we held each other up, like the students in the school. But that was basically all we had. We didn't have what we had at home, and I was the first grandchild of the Bailey family and the Moody family, and I was kind of spoiled, not realizing that I was spoiled, because everybody loved me and they treat me nice, and they give me, you know, extra things like cookies and chocolate bars and candy and pop and stuff, and juice, mostly juice. And I could go anywhere and be treated really, you know, nice on the reserve. And I could go in anywhere on the reserve and play with anybody that I knew. And whereas in residential school, it was you were only allowed to play in the yard and stay behind the fence. You couldn't go over the fence, or else you'd get punished. And that's the only time I really got a strapping, was when I went outside the fence, and just, you know, just being typical Indian girl again. And I went out and I was running around the yard there, and just playing with the kids behind the fence. You know, we're pretending that we're, you know, I was the smart one who got away, and I was teasing them on the inside. And it was just fun that I was having, but then I got caught. And I had to go and put hands out and get strapped until my hands were red. And then, like Bob said, you couldn't do your work in the classroom because your hands were so sore. And it was not very comfortable. And then you got to wonder how these people could be so mean, you know, and they were supposed to be closer to God than anybody, and they were allowed to do this kind of thing. It wasn't a very good reflection on them, but you know, there was nothing I could do about it. So I just endured the abuse that was happening, and listened to all the bad things that they were telling me I was, and how bad I was going to be when I grew up. I was going to be a prostitute on the street. I didn't even know where a prostitute was. But that's what they told me. I was going to be a prostitute on the street, and that why were they teaching me English and math and you know, everything that I was learning in class, wasting their time, because I was not going to be a very good person anyway. But you know, that I pretty soon it started to sink in, you know, that maybe I'm not going to be a very good person. But for some reason, I thought that it was, you know, that's what they predicted for me. But I got to thinking after when I got out of school, well, after the third or fourth time of running away from school, I ran down the States, and I was down there for almost 2 years picking berries and just working it wherever I could in the fields, pruning the berry bushes and the trees, and then I was a waitress for a while, and not really a waitress, but I was serving food. And doing the best I could to earn my own keep and pay my rent and stuff like that. And it got to be where I was thinking about all the people that were hiring me. There were good examples of how good people could be and be higher up than you and older than you, and they treated you decent, and they treated you with kindness and love, and I said I don't want to be like a nun anymore. I wanted to be like, you know, regular people. So I started to think about it, and I finally decided I'd rather be a nice person than be a nun like the rest of them that were in that school. And so after a while, I just decided that's it. I'm not gonna listen to what the nuns are saying or what they're doing, because they're just too mean, and they're with their abuse and their words. So I tried to find as much love out there that I could find, like my grandmother and my grandpa and my uncles and aunties, and they were always treating me, you know, like I was their baby, and I was used to that. So when I found other people who were as kind as my uncles and aunties, I tried to stay with them and tried to learn from them, not listen to the nuns anymore. I didn't want to go back to school anymore, and it wasn't as fun or as nice as I thought it was going to be. And just because my cousins were in there, and they were, you know, they didn't want to run away with me, so I just was by myself and started to find work. I was working in a hospital up here in Squamish and worked in the restaurants over town. And you know, I was born here in Squamish, so I was born in Statutory, and I'm still here. So it's been quite the life, and I just really want to give that much to my community and to treat as many people as I can with as much love as I can give them, and that's pretty much it. Except for that, you know, the residential school wasn't a very nice place to be. It was too much structure and not enough friendliness or kindness, and I didn't get anything else out of residential school besides abuse. Even the education that they were trying to teach me, I didn't really learn very much because you can't learn when you're being abused. So it's such a waste of time. I believe them that they're wasting their time, but it wasn't me that was suffering for it. It was them that they were just so abusive and they're so mean. I just wish there was more kindness and understanding and love in schools, but that's too late for that now. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. I'm just going to turn it on to me here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And all I'd like to add is these three here have been 100% supporting our community. They, when they got out of residential school, they came into this community. I do believe Kiyowil went back to school, carpentry. He became a logger, a fisherman, and he went back to school, got his carpentry, and built houses before he retired. Auntie Gwen went back to school. She was my education coordinator, chased me down in high school looking for me because when I skipped out of school. So, she went back to school as well, right?
Yeah.
Went to get her grade 12.
Just, in the school, residential school, none of us had birthdays.
Oh,
And none of, you know, my brother talked about the school we went to, that there was people from the Nisga's, Balabalas, all the way down the coast that went to that school. It wasn't just the community of that area. And many of them didn't know English. And we had grade 1A, grade 1B, grade 1C. And because I was, I guess, in the white man's world, I was fortunate because my father went to residential school. My father never taught the Squamish language to us. And so, you know, oops.
Yep, keep going.
Yeah, so I knew English, so I just went right into grade 1. Many of our students, you'd call them from way back when, didn't know English, so they had to go through 2 years of grade 1. And but we never really knew their age because we went by grades. We looked at it as when we were grade 8, we're going to be out of school. That's how far it went. You know, we were in a big school where we had to cook for 200 kids. We had to learn to cook by quantity. And I learned how to cook by pitchers and by cups, not by cups and teaspoons, tablespoons. That's how we learned how to cook. And you can imagine little 12, 13-year-old kids cooking that much. We had to wash all the clothes. We had big laundry. We ironed off. We had a big mango that we had to iron on. You know, things like this we learned. And this is all quantity because 200 of us. We all, none of us, when I first went to school, they took our clothes away. That's why the orange shirt came out. They took our clothes away from us. And they had us, we had gray or navy dresses. They called it 12.
Yeah.
And we had pinafores. And we had long stockings, either black or brown, high boots. But all our clothes that we went into school with were taken away from us. And we all had numbers. And we didn't bath, we all went under showers once a week. And we had to, that's when Bob says we only work half a day. The girls had to mend, cook, and do laundry, scrub floors. That's what we did when we reached grade 4. Not when I was 8 or 9, I didn't know my age. I reached grade 4. But I reached grade 8, then I graduated. Some of us were 15, some of us were 13. So age didn't mean anything when we were there because we had no birthdays. Just want to share that with you.
Yeah.
Wow.
When anybody died in our family, they just let us know.
Yeah.
We were not allowed out of the school to go to grandparents. My grandmother, my great grandmother passed away when I was in that school, and I couldn't go. And auntie passed away. Couldn't go, but we were told. I don't know if they ask questions or not.
No.
No. Okay.
So I guess one of the things that I would like to share is, as a first generation survivor, we have been affected as well. My children, my great grandchildren in the future. And this has all been affected us generation after generation. Alcohol and drug abuse, suicide, huge suicide, depression, oppression, abuse of others, cultural identity confusion. So our culture was taken away completely. Up until the mid 1950s, we were banned from practicing our culture across Canada.
Yeah.
And we just started getting our culture back in the 1950s. In the 1970s, people started going back into our longhouses. And there was like maybe 20 people. And now I go to a longhouse and it's full. It's completely full. We have our members practicing our traditional dance in the longhouse. We have people learning our language from little ones, from babies. Our little ISLAM family program, they're learning little bits of our song and our language. We have people in our community now who have graduated, not only just grade 12, but we have them in post-secondary, getting their diplomas, degrees, their masters. We have 2 doctors, I do believe, in our nation. So we are growing strong again. We went from, before contact, I heard 10,000 strong. We were 10,000 strong. And then we dwindled down to about 250 people. And now today we're up just past 4,100 members. And it's growing. It's really growing. Our children are learning our language. Our children are learning our culture. And I have to say, with the 3 of these and our survivors, they're not the only ones. Our survivors sharing their story, understanding the importance of their language, their culture, their family, and it's coming back to us. And my own personal story, I went to public school. I didn't go to residential. I tried to get into St. Mary's with my best friend. She got in trouble and they sent her there. And I wanted to go, and then they said no. I didn't know what it was. I really did not know what St. Mary's was at all. And I'm glad I didn't go. There's a lot of stories out there. I really suggest strongly that you listen to some of their stories. They have different stories. They have different pains, and they have different suffering. What has lost. Personally, I've lost my mother. She's been gone now for 45 years. My mother, she died when she was young. I have a brother who passed away about 5 years ago. So it's continuum. But, as a community and as a family, we need to strengthen our family and get that alcohol and drug out of here, and try to find help for our community. And that's one of the reasons why I still work here with the nation. We want to continually support our families and get the help that they need. And, we've got a long way to go, but it is happening. And I really would like to thank the 3 elders today for sharing their stories and their wisdom. And they continually go into our schools and share their story. It's not so harsh for a grade 3 classroom, but I do believe that a young person stumped our elder with a question. She really had to think about, whatever her question was. She had to think about it and take it home and then come back and answer the question. So, even our elders are stumped sometimes with the question. So with that, I really would like to thank the 3 of them for coming here tonight in this stormy rain and be here with us tonight. And if you want to say anything else.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're elders, we tell stories. And it's up to the person to find out take something out of that story.
Yeah.
We elders will tell a story for a reason. And they call it the wisdom of the elder. We're not university students and all this. We're just residential school grade 8 students that had to go back to school to learn. And I wanted to tell you about my husband's side of the family. He was very involved with his language. His mother and father never let him forget his language. And he spoke it. He used to have fun with his language when he was younger. It really, because he was taught English and the language still stayed with him, but he still talked to his dog in Squamish language. And talk to his kids. And when he got older and he lost his health, he was a language teacher. And he taught the language to the younger generation, the younger kids, little kids, easy to learn. And we have this young man that comes to the Elder Center and tries to teach us the language. And I couldn't learn. I can say the words, but as soon as I walk out that door, I forget. And that's because I was never taught. You know, it's taught English right from the beginning, and I just can't learn it no matter what, you know. So I just want to share that with you. I'm glad they're teaching the young. But I do know a few words in the Kapala language because my other family's from there, and they did talk to us when we were young. So it does help when you're young.
Any closing words, Kiyowil?
Yeah, no, I forgot to say when we were before we left school last year, our school was around the Army cadets. We were in the Army cadets, trained to fight. But even when the Japanese, they said they were coming down. Imagine us guys marching around with a wooden gun and we're gonna go fight the Japanese with it. Anyway, when we left school, before we left, we all lined up outside. We were already trained through the Army. And we had to get measured up for the next war. We were already signed up for what's gonna happen in this world that started in, but never did. I'm glad it didn't. That was one thing that I always think about that, you know, what was gonna happen. But we never did get to that. Lost my uncle and I lost our uncle in the Holland. He got killed in the war, and so we one of my family that did. That was good. Thank you.
Humteya, closing words?
Yeah, I think that because of what Christine said, that the continued abuse of our past has affected her as well, and I think all of our children were brought up with us non-experienced people that had no training on how to be a parent or anything to, you know, to bring up our children properly. But I think that if you have the opportunity to listen to more people and get their stories, that if it helps at all, and especially if you've got your own children and you're bringing them up now, that it's going to help you go back to the Indian way and teach your child how to be a loving Squamish person, not the other people.
Thank you. Hillary? With that, I wanted to thank the elders for tonight, and the Squamish Public Library has these gifts for them.
Oh,
Yes, for your dad. And would like to thank you for honoring our elders, and that's pretty much it. Shirley.
Thank you very much. I wanted to say Kiyowil, Chesha, and Humteya, And TlatlaKwot, thank you. Just doesn't feel like it's enough. We appreciate you sharing your stories with us as you've done many times before to many people. And every time you do this, it's a tremendous opportunity for more people to learn. And hearing your firsthand accounts is incredibly impactful. And we're so fortunate to get the chance to listen to you this evening. And I know we're all better people for the opportunity. And so thank you again. We raise our hands to you in gratitude. I also wish to thank our librarian, Rachel Bergquist, for doing the technical support from behind the scenes tonight and for coordinating tonight's event, as well as many of the library's Truth and Reconciliation initiatives. So thank you to Rachel. And we wish to thank everyone for showing up and listening this evening. I think we had well over 150 attendees, which is wonderful, and maybe a first start for some people, maybe further along your learning path, but it's all important and it all matters. And just wanted to say one more thing, that tomorrow on September 30th, there is an event happening downtown from 1 to 3 p.m. Pardon me?
There's 2 events.
2 events. Oh, yes. Actually, Christine, could you mention the morning one? I hadn't got any details on that. Is that the first one that you know of?
Yeah. It's the RCMP. They're bringing out their little Thunderbird canoe. And they're going to bring out the youth at 10 o'clock at Alice Lake. It's in regards to the paddle making workshop with the youth. So they're going to take them out from 10 to 12, and because they are aware of the 1 o'clock event as well.
Okay, so that's open to the public as well. So Alice Lake.
I understand. Yes.
Okay. And then certainly the afternoon event from 1 to 3 p.m. downtown, organized by some members of the Squamish Nation. There will be drumming, singing, and a gathering for all community members. Everyone's welcome to attend. It'll be occurring down at Junction Park at OCM Pavilion. And the library will have a presence there as well. We'll be handing out some resources on residential schools for the community to have and keep. So you're welcome to join us for that. And as as I mentioned earlier tonight, Rachel wrote it down for me. We will be sending out a resource list as well as a little follow-up feedback form to all the attendees. Just doing my library job here now. So again, much appreciation to our guests for tonight, and I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the hundreds of attendees as well. But thank you very much, and go forward in good health. And we're starting off our first ever September 30th. I hope on the right foot. So thank you again, and have a good evening, everyone.
Okay,
See.
thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Drums can be rolling all over
That's what
Canada.
I was gonna ask.